Hello, welcome to Fostering Learning at Home, Tech Tips and Tricks, Ideas to make remote learning a little easier for families. My name is Michelle Wagner. I'm a literacy consultant with Wayne Risa, and I'm joined today by my brilliant colleague and instructional technology consultant, Judy Bowling. To begin by just sharing a silver lining that's come from all of this pandemic and remote learning. And if there's one thing that we can really point to as being something good, I think it would be this. We've really shifted our mindset. No longer is technology something that just a few people know how to use or do, but we are all techie in some way or another. I think about the skills and the opportunities that our students have had because of remote learning, and they are certainly more tech literate today than they were a year ago. And that is a silver lining. Let's start with a few tech tips and tricks. I'll throw it over to Judy.
There are sometimes that you create links that you're going to be sharing with other people that you want to test to make sure that they work before you share them. So if, for example, the setting is set in such a way that it's only visible to you and then you share it with somebody else, they might not be able to see it. So if you want to test those before you share them with other people or before your child shares something with somebody else, a great way to do that is to use something called the incognito screen. And if you are using the Chrome browser, you can go to the Control Shift letter N keys. And what that will do is that will bring up an incognito screen. You'll get this message that will have a black background and a reminder that you've gone incognito. And basically what that means is that you're not logged into any accounts. It's not attached to the individual who may have been logged into another browser, another window. And you can test your links. So you can paste your links into this incognito window. And if you've got these settings, or if your child has their settings done correctly, then that page will be visible. And then that's a visual that it's ready to be shared out with other people, and they'll be able to view it as well. Another tip that can be helpful is the ability to pin a tab. And so frequently, especially with our younger kids, they will have various tabs open, and it's very easy to accidentally close a window. And so you can see that ordinarily when you've got a browser window open, you've got large tabs there, again, that can be easily closed accidentally. So if you pin the tab, what that does is it creates a smaller tab that goes to the left-hand side of the browser window that just tucks it away. If you are going to pin a tab, the way that you do that is if you right-click on the tab itself, you'll get a drop-down menu, and one of your choices will be to pin that tab. And once you choose pin, what happens is that larger tab reduces to a smaller tab with just the icon on it, and it positions itself to the left side of the window. So you can see here in the upper left-hand corner, this little purple icon is a Google Classroom tab that's been pinned. And so it will remain there throughout the duration of this browsing experience. But even if you close the browser and open it back up again, it's a shortcut that will remain pinned in that left-hand corner. And so that can be really helpful for your kids. There may be situations where your child may receive an assignment, a web page, worksheet, something that needs to be done that using this feature of translation can be helpful to translate it from English to your native language. And so we're going to jump out of this and go live for this portion. Google has done an amazing job creating this translation engine where by simply going to translate.google.com, you can, on the left-hand side here, include some text. You can paste it in there. By default, it's set to English, but it could be text copied from a different language as well. But for the sake of this, I've pasted in some English text. And then on the left-hand side, I can choose the language that I would like it to be translated to, and I've chosen Spanish. And so you've got this side-by-side translation happening live right within this web page. There will be times that your child may have a document that they've created that this translation would be helpful for them. And so this next tip here has that same text, but this text is within context of a Google document. And so with this, Google has built that translation engine right into this tool. In order to get to it, what you would do is go to the Tools menu, and down about midway through, it says Translate Document. And similarly, it gives you the choice of choosing the language that you would like this document to be translated to. So if I once again choose Spanish and say Translate, it will translate that document itself. And what you might notice also is that the title changed. So in the original, it said parents, that was the name of this document. As soon as I went through that translation process, it actually made a copy of this document in the translated language that I chose, and it renamed the document. So I don't lose the original, I simply gain a duplicated copy in that translated language. If your child is browsing the internet, so let's say that they are browsing the internet, and here I have an article from National Geographic for Kids, and if I needed the functionality, again, of translation, something that you can do is you can take that Google Translate feature if you have the Google Translate extension. So I've already previously installed this extension in my Google Chrome browser. I'm on a web page and I want to translate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Google Translate extension, and I have a link here that says translate this page. So I'm going to click on that, translate this page, and that same Google Translate engine now appears in the left-hand corner. And similarly, I can choose the language that I want, and it translates this entire web page. If I want it to go back to the original, I simply click on this button to show original. Now, you might have a situation where your child has a document that has been shared with them, perhaps a PDF document, a worksheet that is in English that might need to be translated as well. So I'm going to share two different ways that you can do that. The first is we're back onto the Google Translate page, and by default it was set to just copy paste some text, which is what we did the first time. This time I'm going to click on the Documents button because I want to upload the worksheet example that my child might have received. So I've got it set to be English by default, and I want it translated to Spanish. So I'm going to click on the Browse Your Computer, and I'm going to navigate to where that worksheet is. And I will say Translate. What you'll notice here is that it did the translation of that worksheet, but what you lost was the formatting. That may not matter to you. This might be okay. You could print this off and your child could continue to work on it. If, however, you want the formatting to stay the same, another tool that you might choose to use is one called Doc Translator. So I'm going to click on the translator button here. And similarly, I'm going to upload that exact same worksheet. And scroll down a little bit, and it started in English, and I would like it to be translated to Spanish. And I'm going to click on Translate. Give it a few minutes or a few moments to work its magic. And eventually this link will appear, download your translated document. So I'm going to click on that, save it to my desktop. And when I open up this document, what you'll notice is that it translated it into Spanish, just like the Google Translate did, but it did not lose the formatting. So it looks exactly the same as the original in and has been translated to Spanish. So both do the same job. Google Translate will translate it for you, but you lose the formatting. Docs Translator will translate it for you and maintain the formatting. Sometimes your child might receive a worksheet from their teacher. And again, we're not making any judgments on worksheets, but your child might get a worksheet that they need to respond to write on, to add comments to, possibly to annotate. So there could be a myriad reasons why or what they need to do with that. But using Google or one of those G Suite tools doesn't allow you to edit anything in a PDF file. So we need to use a different tool to do that. So one of those tools is called Cami, and it is an extension that you can install in your Chrome browser. And once you do that, it will appear as a letter K. Once I click on that, I've got some options of where I can pull that document from. And I happen to have the worksheet right now sitting on my desktop. So I'm going to open that up from my desktop. And if this again were a document that your child received and they needed to complete, there are some things that you can do within Cami to help you accomplish that. One of the things that it can do is it can take the text and read it aloud. And you can do that over here on the left. And you can click on play right away and it will start at the beginning and read all of it.
Day traditions are the beliefs and ways of doing things that are passed down from.
Or you can highlight a section of it.
What are some traditions we celebrate in the fall?
So either way, you can start from top down and read the whole thing or highlight a portion of it and it will read it to you. You can change the voice and the speed if that is helpful as well. But Cami allowed the PDF file, this worksheet, to be opened. And if this was something that I needed to respond to, I could simply click on the text box here, choose a different color if I wanted to, choose a font size, and then click where I need to respond. So maybe I say, we carve pumpkins. And then I could continue to do that throughout the document by adding those text boxes. And so originally I uploaded this from my desktop. Because I uploaded it from my desktop, Cami is smart enough to know that it needs to be saved, but it's going to be saved into my Google Drive. And so as soon as I added some text to it, Cami came up with this box on the right to just be a reminder to me that says you haven't yet saved this to the drive, to your Google Drive. So I'm going to just click on Save to Drive, and it's now saved into my Google Drive. Had I opened up this document from Google Drive to begin with, I would not have had that message. Now, the nice thing is that I have this save button here, and everything I do, it's going to be saved into my Google Drive. Or when I was all done, if I wanted to download it back to my desktop so that I could then print it off, I could do that as well. And so there's lots of other features within Cami that you can use. For the sake of this particular worksheet, all we needed to do was to add text, but there are other things that you could do if a different assignment was given to your child. Editing a PDF document, which in the case of your child, most likely will come through perhaps as a worksheet that's been assigned to them. Once you've logged on to Google and your child needs to open up an application, if you go to the upper right-hand corner, there's a grid of 9 little squares that oftentimes is referred to as the waffle. This is the location where you can find all the Google apps that your child might need to use. If you're looking for the different applications within Google, you can find those applications using the waffle. The waffle is located in the upper right-hand corner, and it's called the waffle because it looks like a waffle. It's got 9 little squares formed together into a grid that looks like the waffle. So all the apps that your child would be looking for would be underneath this waffle. Now, they may not look the exact same that you're seeing in the screen here because they may be in different orders, but they are there. You might need to just scroll through the list a little bit. Google Drive is where all of these apps and all the documents that your child is working on reside. So if you think of Google Drive as being your primary folder, the repository of all their work. So this is where they will have their folders, their documents, things they're working on, things that have been shared with them, things that they have shared with other people. And one of the beautiful things about anything within Google Drive is that everything that is done is saved automatically. So gone are the days where you had to think save early and save often. Everything is saved automatically. It's synchronized storage, and it is there forever unless you or your child manually removes it from their drive. Within Google Drive too, this is where they'll create new projects. So clicking on that new button in the upper left-hand corner is where they can create something new. You'll see a few apps listed, but don't forget to click on that more button because there are a lot of hidden treasures behind that more. And you'll see a drop-down menu appear that provides a list for some additional applications that they may need for creating something new, particularly Google Forms and Google Drawings. So you can get to the apps, as we pointed out, from the waffle menu. You can get to the apps from within your Google Drive, but Google has also created some shortcuts that you can get to those applications in one quick method, and that is by simply typing in any of these shortcuts. So if you click on docs.new, sheets.new, slides.new, forms.new, it will take you to all of the documents that they have either created themselves or have been shared with them without having to go through those other avenues. So at the end of the day, whether you go to it through the waffle, the drive, or one of these shortcuts, it will ultimately get your child to the various documents that they have within their drive. Google has some privacy and sharing features built in that gives you flexibility on what you allow others to see or do with the work that's been created by your child. And so, for example, you might have a situation where your child has created a video that needs to be shared with your teacher. And so this might be something where we don't want the whole world to see this video. We only want the teacher to see this video. We don't want it out there for everybody. And so within Google, in this case, it's a video, you can click on the share button in the upper right-hand corner, and it gives you the ability to think about who you want to share it with and how you want them to view it. And so, as you can see in this slide here, Michelle Wagner is the owner of this video right now. She's the only person who can see it, but you can add individual people to it, and you can choose for them to just be able to view it, to be able to edit it, or to just make a comment on it. And in the case of this one, I might add just the teacher, and only the teacher would be able to view it. As soon as I were to add their name here and click on the save, they would get an email indicating that that this particular video had been shared with them. And that just helps to maintain privacy for that information that's being shared, particularly when it comes to videos of your child. As our kids meet with their teachers and classmates virtually, this is just something to keep in mind, and that is the background. Just be aware of what might be in the background when your child is engaged in one of their virtual meetings. And so it could be, animals in the background, other family members in the background, whatever it is, just to kind of be cognizant of that so that your child can stay engaged in the conversations, but also not have anything that might make them, uncomfortable in that conversation as well. Depending on the software that your child is using, they do offer different features where you can add a virtual background or blur the background. And so this is just something to keep in mind when they're engaged in the conversation, to just be aware of the activity that is happening possibly in the background.
As Judy already shared, we rely quite a bit on Chrome extensions and apps that we can add through the Chrome browser. And I wanted to share another one that is really helpful for students who might be easily distracted when reading text online. So just like the other extensions, this one is found in the Chrome Web Store. This particular one is called Mercury Reader. You can see there that it has the 4-star rating. I often recommend that people check that rating because you don't want to download something that only has 1 star or 2 stars. You want to make sure that lots of different people are using the app and that it has a pretty good rating. So Mercury Reader is one of my go-tos. As you can see, once you download it into your Chrome browser, you'll see it in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like that little rocket ship right there. And it will be right in the upper right-hand corner, grayed out unless you are on a page where it can be utilized. So let me show you an example of that. So it really does help if you're easily distracted. So what it does is it takes a complicated website, like what you're seeing there on the left, and when you click on it, it turns it into what you're seeing on the right. So I want to navigate away from my presentation for just a moment to show you what that looks like in real time. So here I am on the page. You can see there's advertisements on the right, lots of stuff. But when I click the little rocket ship, what it does is it makes it into much more of a readable document for my child. This can be something that really just helps them focus on the text. You can print this out, but even if you're just reading it on your screen, as you can see, it's much easier. It doesn't always remove all of the ads, but it does a pretty good job. So you can see it's much easier to read than before. If you wanted to go back to the original website, you'd simply click on the little rocket ship again. This is a great one because it's a great accommodation to teach your child how to use if he or she does get distracted. No one else needs to know that they use this tool, and they're on the same exact website as everyone else. It doesn't change the content, just the way in which the content is delivered to them personally. As we think about articles and pieces that we're being asked to read online, some children find it very difficult to read those articles online. And so, one really great tool that you can utilize at home for free is printfriendly.com. So, while some of the other apps that we've shown, like Mercury Reader, are actually something that happens within the browser, Print Friendly is a separate website that you can go to from any internet browser, and you basically cut and paste the URL from a complicated article or piece, and it will create a user-friendly PDF. So I just want to show what that might look like. So I may be asked to read a biography about one of my heroes, Elijah McCoy. So Elijah McCoy was a fireman in Ypsilanti, but he was also a great inventor. And he is the reason why we say the real McCoy, because when people wanted a particular invention that he had made for trains, they didn't want a generic or an alternate. They only wanted the one created by Elijah or the real McCoy. So we have here this great article all about Mr. McCoy, lots of great information, but there's also a lot of stuff. You can see that it's telling me about clean energy jobs. It's giving me a lot of just other stuff that I don't need. So if I take this URL and I copy it, and then I paste it within Print Friendly. So I'm going to scroll down and just paste it right here. And then click Preview. What it will do is open up a PDF of this article. Now, what's handy about this is you can see there's the print icon in the upper left. But if I scroll down, one thing that I really like about Print Friendly is, let's say my child does not need to know about the family and the death. I can delete this section by just clicking on the paragraph. I can delete the paragraph. So that can be helpful too if your child gets overwhelmed easily or doesn't need certain pieces. That can be very helpful to the child. So printfriendly.com, a great resource. If your child is learning remotely, you're probably familiar with Google Docs. If not, Google Docs is a Google version of Microsoft Word. So it doesn't have all of the same word processing tools in it that Microsoft Word has, but it's very similar. When you go to docs.google.com, you'll notice that at the top, you'll see quite a few templates. These are great resources, especially for our older children. So children in middle school and high school who might be looking to make their document look a bit more professional. So there's a lot of templates there that students can make use of and they can tweak and make it their own. So I highly encourage you to check out those templates or encourage your child to, especially if they're finishing writing assignments early. This might be a great way for them just to make it look more professional. Within Google Docs, something very important, especially to those students who may be young or who may not be great at typing quite yet, and that's voice typing. You don't have to do anything special to install voice typing on your computer. It will work automatically as long as you have a microphone. And to access it within Google Docs, you'll go to Tools and then click Voice Typing. So I want to show you what this looks like in action. So I'm just going to open up a Google Doc. You'll see there's no writing yet here on my super important writing assignment. I'm going to go to Tools. I'm going to click on Voice Typing, and you'll see it brings up a microphone. The first time you do this, you will have to give it permission to use your microphone, but I have already done that. And now I'm just going to click to speak. What you will notice is that as I talk, the words will come onto the document. I'm not touching my keyboard, but the words are there for all to see. Period. To stop recording, you'll just, or to stop putting the words on the paper, you'll just click the microphone again. You can see there that it's not perfect. Just like with a text message, you actually have to say the word period or the end marks, but it's a way to get those ideas onto the paper. And this also works within Google Slides as well. So it's a handy tool to know about so that you can start getting those words onto paper for those children who maybe struggle with typing. As parents, we often want to give our children feedback on the writing that they are doing, but it's often not convenient to give them feedback right in the middle of the day, especially if we're trying to juggle several children at home and or a job. So there's one really great way that you can offer feedback in a Google Doc that I just want to share with you. And that is using this comment feature. When you click that little chat icon at the top of the Google Doc, what it will do is allow you to leave a comment. So you can see here that I have a piece of writing from my daughter and I've highlighted that first line or the first two lines. And you can see now that it opened up a chat box on the right-hand side of the paper. The great thing about doing a comment like this is that it doesn't actually change their writing. So I know that a lot of times people are very territorial when it comes to their writing, and we don't want to make changes right onto their paper, but we can make some suggestions. And so we can do that there on the side, even if it's a suggestion of something to the effect of, I remember when this happened, or you've done a really great job explaining this, or maybe you should tell them about this other detail. Whatever it is, you can enter it here as a comment and your child will see it the next time he or she opens up their document. If you want to try and help your child find that feedback a little easier, or you want to make sure that they see it, if you put the plus sign in that comment along with your child's email address, what it will do is it will populate an email that will go to the child's inbox that has a link to this particular document and the comment. So it's really handy if your child's working on lots of different documents at once. You can make sure that they know exactly which document you provided feedback on. So this can be really helpful if your child has a busy course load or a heavy course load and they're writing several papers at once. This is a great way just to give them some feedback and tell them that you're checking out what they're writing and that you're interested. So it's a great way to be engaged with your child and to give that little boost of encouragement. It's also a way if you need to communicate with the teacher and ask a question, instead of your child's email address there, you could ask the teacher a question. If you had a question about length or how much detail the child needed to include, you could ask this here as well. And the teacher wouldn't have to guess which paper you were talking about or referring to. They would know exactly because it would have a link for them there. When we think about the writing process is just as important as the actual finished product, perhaps more so. We want to encourage our children to keep coming back to their writing and to make it better and to add details And just remember that writing, even when we publish it, doesn't have to be perfect, that we can keep coming back to it and making it better and better, that that's what good writers do. If you want to see that process that your child has gone through, if you click on File and then Version History, you'll see all of the changes that your child has made, or actually anyone has made to that particular document. So if you wanted to see the last time it was edited, or if you've ever had the situation where your child suddenly is very upset because whatever they were working on is suddenly gone. They don't know what happened. They don't know what button they pushed, but the words that they were typing or entering are gone. Coming to version history will let you find those. So it's a really great tool just to have in your back pocket in case there's ever that moment of panic. So it'll show you those pieces when they were deleted and who deleted them. So it's a great thing to have in mind. If your child tells you that something has gone missing all of a sudden, Control Z will undo their last action. And each time you press Control Z, it'll take it back one step at a time. So it's a really handy tool to have at your disposal, especially if you're writing an email and something goes wrong and there isn't that undo button, you don't see it easily. This is a great tool. It works in almost all apps and programs. So Control Z before you panic may bring back what you've accidentally deleted or redo formatting that you may have accidentally changed. So Control plus Z is my go-to for undo. So we talked about using that Control Z in Gmail, and I will reinforce the fact that I think that Gmail and email in general is a genre of writing that we must teach children. Anyone who's ever gotten a lousy email understands this. Sometimes too much information is included. Sometimes the subject line has nothing to do with what the email is about. And it's frustrating as a parent if you're getting a lot of emails that don't make sense. So really teaching our children what email is and how it can be used can be so effective. And it's something we can do as parents as well by sharing those emails that we get and what we liked about them or what we didn't like can be very helpful for your child. So we know that our kiddos are using email for communication. So, for example, you might be using it to communicate writing assignments. So, how we shared before with that, adding a comment with their email address can be great. But we should also be encouraging our children to advocate for themselves using email, to send those emails to their teachers, especially when they're working remotely. So many teachers are overwhelmed and working so hard in trying to give students what they need that they might not know that your child has a question, especially if your child doesn't speak up in those meetings. I have not met a teacher yet who doesn't want to help children be successful in remote learning. And email is a great way to help them really take responsibility for themselves and ask their teacher for that help and that assistance that they need. Just like they would raise their hand or go up to the teacher's desk in the classroom, we want to encourage them to use email in much the same way. Let's ask for help. I also like to tell children and grown-ups that reply all should almost never happen. So when we get those emails from the teacher and we see lots of different people in the to line, if we reply to all, everyone will see our response. And we just want our children to be mindful that if we do that and it's a private message, that might be embarrassing. So just to keep in mind who you're replying all to and just make sure that that's not happening very often. Google Calendar is another one of those tools that people don't often think of as a writing tool, but I absolutely think it is. So when I think about Google Calendar, I don't know how I stayed organized before Google Calendar, but you can see there you can add an event by clicking create, and you can add the event title and when it is and who might be, who the guests are that are involved in it. You can even add the Google Meet conferencing link right there or a location of where the event might be happening. But if you click on that more options, we can encourage our children to add extra details, to give us more information about the event so that we as parents know exactly what's happening, what exactly they need. So it might be something as simple as, "Hey mom, I have an assessment on Thursday and I need it to be quiet because I'm going to be reading and I'm going to be trying to do these these higher level thinking tasks and I just need it to be quiet." Sending me a message as a mom to let me know that that needs to happen might make me more prepared to help my child. I might set up a special learning space on that day. I might make sure that their brothers and sisters are working in different places. Might just have a different plan. So, encouraging your child, again, it's about advocating for what they need, but also keeping a reminder for themselves of when certain pieces are happening. And then you can even set that notification so that you're getting reminded of that 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day ahead of time so that we don't miss those opportunities to give our child exactly what he or she might need. Google Slides. Many classrooms are using Google Slides, especially with our littlest learners. There's lots of reasons for that. It's one of my favorite tools in Google, but there's some really great things about Google Slides. And the first one I just want to share with you very quickly is this idea of the way the slide is set up. If you think about a slide presentation, you're probably thinking about PowerPoint and projecting those slides and clicking through them, but there are other ways to use them. So if we think about the page setup, by default, it is set up like a PowerPoint slide or a presentation slide, but we can do the custom and put the page setup to resemble an actual sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And then what you'll see is it actually looks like a piece of paper. This is really handy for young learners because now they can put the stuff on the paper that they want and organize it in a way that makes sense to them. So if they're adding pictures, it's just a little easier to format than it would be in a Google Doc. You can move things around a little bit easier. So I highly recommend if you've got little learners at home, especially if they're frustrated when they print out their paper or they're writing and there's only a few lines, this is a great way for that writing to take up more of the page and then to also provide a space for them either to color their own picture or draw their own picture if you print it out and then let them draw it physically. Or they can add clip art and pictures and images from different sites that they may find that they'd like to add here as well. So Google Slides are just a little bit easier to work with sometimes. So I highly recommend them for young learners. Another thing that I like to show parents is this adding of a video. So a lot of times our children are being asked to record themselves reading or writing or telling about their day or just sharing an experience with their teacher. And videos are a great way to do that. So if they're taking a video with a cell phone or with their Chromebook, we might want to put it into a Google Slide. This will just make it easier to share with the teacher. So if you click on the insert and then the video option, you can either insert something from YouTube, but if you click on that Google Drive, you can insert a video that you've recorded and saved to your Google Drive. So very handy for sharing videos with teachers. So once you click on that, you'll be able to select the specific video that you'd like to share with the teacher, and then the child can show you what they can do. And it's so refreshing and nice as a teacher to actually see that video of the child reading and writing and growing and sharing. It's a piece that we don't want to miss this year. And it's also a skill that your child is going to have forever of how to insert a video into a slide deck and then share it with other people. That's a pretty high level skill that these children are getting this year. If your computer is running slow, one of the first things you might want to do is check how many tabs your child has open. Too many tabs, especially on a Chromebook, can slow things way down. And sometimes our children not only have a, an internet browser that looks like this, but they have several internet browser tabs that are open that look similar to this. And your Chromebook is trying to refresh all of these all the time, and it's just bogging down the computer. So if your computer is running slow, I highly recommend checking to see how many tabs you have open and see if there's a bunch that you can shut down. With that, we just want to say thank you for staying with us today, and we hope that you found a tip or a trick that can be useful in some way to you and hopefully make remote learning just a little bit easier in your home.